So given that we've gone through all our predictions, I think our week one preview, but let's get into this. Let's start off with Thursday's slate. I feel like there's really only two good games on Thursday, and that is North Carolina, who are a 2-point favorite at Minnesota. The over-under for that game is 49.5. And kicking off at the same time is the Bison of North Dakota State heading to Boulder to take on Colorado, who is a 10-point favorite. The over-under for that game is 60.5. Jay, we'll start off with you. This North Carolina-Minnesota game seems very intriguing. Minnesota kind of has been playing these games the past few years. They're that opening, kickoff on Thursday night, and it seems like they always give whoever they're playing a little bit of trouble. Who do you think comes out ahead in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota always give anybody their toughest battle on a Thursday night, first week of the season. I got North Carolina though. Nick, I do agree with you. North Carolina, I think, will be a tough battle in the ACC this year. Mac Brown's done a hell of a job there. I just think North Carolina is the better team. I mean, Minnesota stinks. Let's be real here. So, give me North Carolina, and then for the Colorado game, I'm going to take North Dakota State in the points. Colorado also just not a very good team. They brought in a bunch of transfers that aren't very good. Their offensive line's still going to be really, really bad. Shador's going to put up numbers, but they're just still not a very good team. So I'll take North Dakota State in the points. I think they can keep it close in Boulder.
JDC, I am going to respectfully disagree with you on your take in the first game. Minnesota is one of my sneaky picks in the Big Ten this year. I think they are going to be much better than people think. I think the introduction of Max Brosmer as their quarterback is going to be huge. Dude was a dog at New Hampshire. Obviously, making the jump up divisions is always a tough thing, but I think he's got the capability to get it done, especially because he gets to keep the team's leading receiver from last year in Daniel Jackson. And he gets to keep one of the best running backs in college football in Darius Taylor. Darius Taylor is phenomenal. He's a very good runner. I think Minnesota wins that game, especially at home. I got the Golden Gophers. And the North Dakota State-Colorado game is one of the games I tried to stay away from in my picks this week because I think everyone and their mother is taking North Dakota State to win that game. Just simply because it's North Dakota State. I think that is kind of a definition trap game for both sides, actually. Colorado is, at this point, it's hard to say this, but I think people are starting to underrate Colorado simply because they're picking North Dakota State to win that game. We have to remember that Colorado is still a very talented team. They have talented players. I believe that I am going to take Colorado to cover the 10-point spread against North Dakota State. I don't feel great about it, but I'm going to take them.
I don't know where, Jay Walsh, you and the two guys I did the Green and White Report with on Sunday morning subscribe, what magazine you guys listen to, because I had people on that show try and tell me that Colorado was going to make a bowl game, which we're not picking season win totals this year, but I took the under on that, in case you were wondering, under 5.5, because Colorado's not a good football team. And the situation's only worse from last year because that locker room is a cesspool. Back to the first game, I'm taking North Carolina. That's one of my picks for the week in my parlay. I think they have a solid quarterback situation with whoever they decide to go with. I like their running back, Amorion. I can't have his last name is escaping me. Ran for 1,500 yards last year. Was an absolute stud. Yes, they lose Drake May, but they still bring in they still have a lot of talent. They're a sleeper team in the ACC. And Minnesota's defense last year was not very good. It was like 70th in the nation. And they've lost their defensive coordinator. He's now in East Lansing. So maybe that was a blessing in disguise. Time will only tell. But I got to go with North Carolina on that one. And then I'm taking North Dakota State, and I'm going to take the under in that game. I think North Dakota State, they're traditionally a very strong defensive team. Obviously, they've produced some pretty good quarterbacks in the NFL, and then they've produced Trey Lance as well. But I just Colorado just doesn't do it for me. That's a lot of points against a very good team. And this Colorado team was bad last year. Like once Bo Nix stole their signs or wherever the hell the allegation was this afternoon, and that game at Autzen just broke that program, and they couldn't get off the field against Stanford last year. They almost lost Colorado State at home. People forget in like week 2. Not a good Colorado team. They didn't. Their solution is to play a true freshman at left tackle. I don't care how good of a prospect he is. 18-year-old left tackles don't fare very well in college football, especially at the Power 5 level. So I'm going with North Dakota State and the Bison to cover the points and potentially even win outright.
And Deion's also banning CBS reporters from his press conferences. Looks like a very professional coach right there.
That I will not argue with.
Well, I mean, I picked North Carolina to win the ACC, so I'm going to pick them to win this game. And Matt, the name that has been escaping you all night, Omarion Hampton, he's gonna have a breakout game for North Carolina in this one. And then the other game, I think I agree with Jay Walsh. It feels like a trap game on both sides. I am staying as far away as possible from this one. But if you're forcing me to pick, I think North Dakota State covers, but Colorado wins. That game, that scares me. That is a very scary game to me. So we move on to Friday. There's really only one game I think all four of us care about, and that is the beginning of the Jonathan Smith era as Michigan State takes on FAU. Michigan State is a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under is 45.5. Before we get into picks for this game, they did a uniform reveal just prior to us recording, and they somewhat also alluded to the AC/DC songs Thunderstruck, once again coming back as the intro song. Figured we'll just do a quick discussion here. Each of you, what do you think the intro song should be for Michigan State football? Jay, you're the one that wanted this conversation, so you once again will start it off.
It should be Thunderstruck. It's a tradition. Look, I mean, Swag Surfing was cool, but I mean, once a coach that will remain unnamed left, you had to get that out of there. Thunderstruck is as a tradition. They back to D'Antonio when they were really good. And then we can get into the fourth quarter, which is the light show. It should be, I think Matt and I can agree with this. It should be "Lose Yourself" by Eminem, because that would go hard. So.
That's Jay. And I need to give credit where credit is due. The person who suggested it on Sunday on the Green and White Report was my mother, Jody Merrifield. She was the one that suggested
Shout
Lose Yourself. So my mom knows ball. Jody. And I agree with you, Jay. Third quarter is Lose Yourself. Walkout song is Thunderstruck. End of story. Yeah. But Jay Walsh, you think it should be about?
I think Thunderstruck would be great
on our very campus, which is blasphemy.
I think Thunderstruck would be great if it was 1980. I think you guys are getting a little bit outdated here. I think it's time to kind of get with the times and go with something that the modern student section will be able to kind of get hype with and kind of participate alongside. And I think it's a big missed opportunity to not use First Day Out by T Grizzly. I understand that the dude robbed MSU. And I think that would be part of the lore of having that song, is like acknowledging that all happened and acknowledging that, hey, this is Michigan State. This is what we're about. Let's play some football. I think
that's what we're about, is stealing from Hubbard Hall.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyways, I need to fact check Jay Walsh real quick.
I'm sorry. If you live in Hubbard, you deserve to get stolen from. Let's be real.
Wow. Okay, that's a strong allegation. Thunderstruck was released in 1990, so it's not that old of a song. I mean, there are 75,000 people in Spartan Stadium. Only 20 are students. So I'm going to advocate for the old Grouches after sitting everywhere else, even though they don't stand up until it's maybe third down in the fourth quarter. But that's besides the point.
But when you think of the great entrances in college football, you think of the student sections that get involved. Because as much as you want to say that they're outnumbered by the older people in the stadium. The student sections are the ones that make the noise. They are. So you want something that's going to get them
But
active and get them going.
Respectfully, Jenna from my bio class is going to get hyped up for the Blues Clues intro if that's what they play, because she's that wasted because she's been tailgating since 11 a.m. So I don't think it actually matters what song we play. The students aren't the problem, because in order to get all 75,000 people, which is when it's at its loudest, you got to play something that everybody knows. And I know Uncle Joe, who's been a season ticket holder since '68, is not getting hyped up to T Grizzly. So
I understand,
but we can digress. I'm taking Michigan State to cover.
All right, we can end that conversation and agree to disagree. But I will also be taking Michigan State to cover, and I will be, as you will find out later in my picks to come, I will be taking the over because my quarterback told me to, and I 100% believe in my quarterback. So I will be taking Michigan State to cover, and I will be taking the over.
Well, you guys closed out the conversation before I could even give an opinion on music, but my opinion isn't really good because I don't know who this T Grizzly guy even is. I'll be 100% honest, no idea who he is. I'm fine with Thunderstruck. I suggested it could be Panama by Van Halen. I also think this is very out there, but I also do think it could be Where the Streets Have No Name by U2. Both of those are both hockey things. Me and Matt have very much talked about that. Panama with the Leafs, Where the Streets Have No Name with the Canucks. Both times they're played give me chills. But we're talking about football here. I think Michigan State covers this game, but I don't think it's going to be high scoring. We'll get into more of it, I think, later, especially when I get into my parlay. But we saw the way that the Georgia Tech-Florida State game played out, and Georgia Tech ran the ball it seemed like every single play. With the new clock rules in play for college football this season, that clock runs down very fast, it seems. And even though it does seem like there's more commercial breaks, that clock is moving much faster. And I think Michigan State is very much going to lean on that run game, which leads to this game not going over. So I will take the under 45.5 here.
Yeah, and I got the Spartans covering as well. There's also just so many unknowns with this team. I like the transfers that Jonathan Smith brought in. I like Tanner Miller. I like Jack Belling. I think Childs will be a very dynamic weapon this year. The defense is still very suspect, but nonetheless, I mean, it's FAU. I'll take the MSU to cover.
All right, we'll move into Saturday. I want to see your guys' opinion on this because I kind of feel like this is one of the weaker week ones that we've had in the past few years. It doesn't feel like there's as many marquee games as there are usually. I only have 4 written down here on our show sheet because I feel like those are like really the only 4 games that are really big this weekend. Do you guys feel like week 1 kind of has taken a back seat this year?
I would agree with that. I think, obviously, like you said, there are a couple marquee games, like obviously Clemson, Georgia is the big game. You've got Notre Dame, Texas A&M. But aside from that, I really do kind of agree that it's kind of underwhelming this year. I think a lot of the hype has kind of not necessarily dissipated because I think obviously everyone is thankful that college football has returned and that we can get back to our degeneracy. But I think it is definitely, in terms of the quality of games, I think it's definitely a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't much else to add. I think that the matchups could be better, but we gamble with what we have laid upon us. So
yeah, I mean, we only get like 16 weeks of this. I mean, you got to cherish it while you get it, but like once you get to October, that's like the main course right there. I mean, third Saturday in October. I mean, there's nothing better than some of those games. Like Ohio State, Oregon, like that weekend, I think it's October 12th, like just a loaded slate. I can't remember some of the games, but I remember they're just absolutely packed. So, I mean, yeah, week 1's, it's fine. Like, it's nice that college football's back, but some bad games, yeah.
All right. There are, we already mentioned one of those games, and that is the Clemson-Georgia game. This game being played at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. That's a noon kickoff with Georgia as a 13.5-point favorite over Georgia. Another noon kickoff in the big noon kickoff game. It is Penn State as an 8-point favorite traveling to Morgantown to take on West Virginia. Jay, we'll start off with you. What do you think of both of these games?
Yeah, I got Georgia covering the 13.5. Look, they're just going to be really, really good this year. Clemson, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, look, they got a lot of talent. Dabo always brings in the top recruits, but they just have been stale the last couple of years. So I got Georgia covering in that game. And then what was the next game?
The Penn State at West
Yeah,
Virginia.
the Penn State. Yeah, Penn State, I mean, I sort of agree with Matt that Penn State's going to be they're going to be really, really good. I think they have a small chance to get to the Big Ten championship. West Virginia, I would say. I mean, Morgantown's a tough place to play. I think West Virginia will be ready. I think they can definitely cover that 8 points. I think Penn State wins this, but I think West Virginia can keep it close.
Again, we're kind of previewing one of my parlay picks later, but Clemson, Georgia, I'm taking Georgia. Minus, honestly, kind of minus whatever. I'm not a believer in Clemson this year. I am mostly because I'm not a believer in Cade Klubnik. I just honestly, I don't think he's that good. Obviously, Clemson, like Jay said, they get top recruits, so they're going to be talented. They have the talent to match up with Georgia at certain positions. I just think Georgia is the superior team overall, and in terms of the coaching matchup, I think Kirby Smart obviously is the best coach in college football right now. So, I mean, in that regard, I'm 100% on board with Georgia. When it comes to Penn State, West Virginia, again, this is one of the games that I kind of put in my games to avoid column. I think Penn State is obviously the more talented team, but as Jay said, Morgantown is a tough place to play. It's tough to travel there, tough to play, and not to mention, I am a world-renowned James Franklin hater. I am a very much a non-believer in James Franklin. So I believe if there is a way he will lose a game, I don't know that I necessarily feel confident enough to take West Virginia to cover, but I would not be surprised if they ended up covering that game.
In the Georgia Clemson game, I feel like the popular pick is to take Georgia because of the renowned Clemson hate, but people seem to forget these teams met 3 years ago, and a point couldn't be scored even if either team tried. I believe it was a 10-3 final, and the only touchdown was a pick six. I would take the under. I didn't put this game in my parlay, but I would take the under, and I would take Clemson to cover because I don't think there's going to be enough points scored in this game for Georgia to hit. I think because I do think Clemson's still very talented, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They leave everything to be desired offensively. They look like 2019, 2018 MSU football with Mark D'Antonio, and except Cade Klubnik didn't have a disastrous shoulder injury like Brian Lewerke. So I'm going to take Clemson to cover the points, and the under, I think, is the play in this game. And then I'd take West Virginia because that's a lot of points, but I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole. I think it's just very dangerous on both sides, and the public doesn't like Penn State at all. For Drew Aller specifically, there are a lot of James Franklin haters out there betting on this game. Jay Walsh is not one of them, though. And I think the under is also a play here because of the new clock rules and two very good defenses. So I think as much as I hate it, and I'm very much a proponent of the over, the under is going to be able to play a lot here, especially early in the year, I think, I'm assuming Vegas has adjusted for the clock rules, but I don't think they actually know until it starts to play out and they see how teams are going to start approaching game management now.
And I just want to jump in here real quick to talk about your discussion on the Clemson-Georgia game real quick. I would just like to remind you that in that very low-scoring game between them a couple years ago, the starting quarterbacks in that game were known Rice legend quarterback JT Daniels and DJ Ukulele, who we saw what he did with Florida State the other day. So I would just like to say I think the quarterback matchup is a little better than that, so I think there will be more scoring. But
I
your
would
point is
I
still
would still
taken.
take DJ over Cade, but you're right. Um, Carson Beck
JT
is still
Daniels, yeah.
infinitely better than any of the other quarterbacks that you just mentioned. Yes, but but anyway, I digress. I still think don't think it matters.
I still think Georgia find a way to cover this game, even if it is a low scoring game. I do like the under here because of that game 2 or 3 years ago, whenever it was. Penn State, West Virginia. I kind of agree with the opinions given here that I wouldn't touch this game, with a 30-foot pole, basically. Uh, it somewhat feels similar to that North Dakota State Colorado game where it's a trap game for both sides. If you're forcing me to pick, I guess I'll take Penn State. I just think they have the more talented team. But with it being in Morgantown, it could get really weird really quick. So we'll get into the other two games that I have here on the board for Saturday, and that is Miami of Florida, of course, not of Ohio. They're traveling to the Swamp to take on Florida. Miami is a 2.5 point favorite with the over/under 53.5. That is a 3:30 kickoff, so please stay hydrated. That is going to be a long day for a few people, probably more than a few people. But the other game we have on this Saturday slate is that Notre Dame game. There traveling to Aggie Land to take on Texas A&M. A&M is the 3-point favorite. The over/under is 46.5. Let's just get into this. Matt, I see you're raising your hand, so we'll just start off with you.
I would like to drive the conversation on these two games, considering I have both these games are part of my parlay. In game number one, I am taking the Gators. The Swamp is, I think, could be, especially in the month of August and September, the toughest place to play in college football. And I think that stands true because a very good Utah team went into the Swamp 2 years ago, and Anthony Richardson found a way to win that football game somehow, and that's the reason he's a Colt. And I will never forgive the Gators for what they did that day because it has ruined the Colts franchise, but I digress. I think Cristobal's a fraud on the road, tough environment, one of the best places to watch a football game, experience a football game, except if you're the away team. I love Cam Ward, but I don't think it works out in this game. I think Graham Mertz and yes, Florida could have a rough year, but they're still extremely talented. They brought in a lot of really good recruits. Billy Napier needs this win if they want to try and make a bowl game, and won't back down by Tom Petty is the best fourth quarter song in college football. So Gator Chomp. And then game two, I'm taking the Aggies. I have a rule that I learned from my father that if a lower ranked team is favored at home against a higher ranked team, you take the home favorite and take the upset with A&M in this situation. I like Notre Dame a lot this year, actually, but I think going on the road, the energy that's going to be there for A&M, they still have a lot of talent returning with Weigman at quarterback, or Weigman, however you say it. I like Mike Elko a lot. Being able to win at Duke is not easy, and now he's taking over a program that has unlimited money, unless you compare it to Oregon. And I think A&M gets it done at home, and they get an electric start to Mike Elko's tenure at A&M, even though I think Notre Dame is good. But I think game number one with Riley Leonard, it's just going to be too much for them, and they're going to lose a very, very good football game.
Yeah, I was going to go with A&M. I'll get to that in a second. With the Miami game, I'm going to roll with Miami, though. Florida, let's just be honest, Florida's not going to be very good this year. I know the Swamp is the toughest place to play. Billy Napier is going to be fired by week 6, Matt. I mean, he's coaching for his job here. I just think Miami's a much better team. This is a rivalry game. I know it's at the Swamp. It's just going to be really, really tough. But look, Cam Ward, they got a lot of talent on that team. I think this is the year they can put it together. I know I'm flirting with fire here, but I'm gonna roll with the U here at the Swamp. Florida with Graham Mertz. I mean, they got, like you said, they got a lot of talent. I just don't think they can put it all together. And then in the A&M game, I got A&M. I think I really like the hire Mike Elko. I think Wegman's a stud. And it's just tough to go into Kyle Field night and win. And I think Notre Dame could do some damage this year. I think they can still try to find a way to make the playoff, but yeah, give me A&M at Kyle Field. That's just a really tough place to play.
Well, realistically, I don't like either of these two games. I saw both of these games on the schedule and I thought about betting on both of them, and I really decided that I really didn't want to. In the first game, I am going to begrudgingly take Miami. I don't love it because I am very much not a believer in Mario Cristobal. I think he's similar to James Franklin. If there's a way to lose a game, he'll find it. But I am honor bound to never bet on a team that is starting Graham Mertz at quarterback. So I do not like Graham Mertz. I understand that Florida is the place. It's there. The Swamp is a very tough place to play. Their schedule this season is ridiculous. And I think we all know that. I think we all know that Napier is going to be coaching for his job, which means they're going to be playing their hardest in this game. So I think this will be an incredibly close game. I could see it going either way. I will begrudgingly take Miami, but I would not be surprised to see Florida win. For the second game, I am, again, didn't really like this game, but I'm begrudgingly going to take Texas A&M, simply because I think, like both of you said, Kyle Field is a tough place to play. And B, it's the first matchup of Mike Elko against his former quarterback, Riley Leonard. And I think that matchup heavily favors Texas A&M. And I think the Aggies get the job done against Notre Dame.
And I'll close it out. I think the Aggies also get it done against Notre Dame. They had a good team last year. I think they were let down by coaching. I think Mike Elko, a huge upgrade compared to Jimbo Fisher. I think A&M might be a dark horse to be an at-large team in the playoff. I don't know if that's like truly a dark horse type candidate, but I think Elko can figure some things out year one. And then the Florida game, like I said, I think Miami is going to be one of the more disappointing teams in college football this year, even with the talent they brought in through the portal. Mario Cristobal, he is just a fraud through and through. I think Florida get the win in that one. Both those games, though, I wouldn't be surprised if both of them stay under. And then we'll close it out with the Sunday and Monday game. On Sunday evening in Las Vegas, it is LSU going up against USC. LSU is a 4-point favorite. The over-under is 64.5. And on Monday night in your normal ACC game, it seems like the ACC always has this Monday night Labor Day game. It is Boston College under, first game under Bill O'Brien going up against Florida State, coming off that loss in Dublin against Georgia Tech. So we'll start off with this LSU USC game. Jay Walsh, you know what? We'll change it up. We'll let you start first with this one, or these two, I should say. What do you think is going to happen in both of these games?
I am taking USC in the first game. I believe, obviously, with LSU having to replace Jaden Daniels, that's a huge blow for them. I think, obviously, I'm not a fan of Brian Kelly, never was. I think he's a decent head coach, but I think he's always kind of been overrated, particularly in big games. Not to say that Lincoln Riley is the world beater at head coach, but I think he's got more of a track record in these types of games than Brian Kelly does, and I am going to take USC, partially because LSU having to fly across the country will also play a decent factor. And then in the Monday game, I know I told you guys that after the monstrosity of what happened in Ireland after I picked Florida State to win that game, that I was going to take Boston College regardless of what the point spread was. But I am going to change my mind on that because I think Florida State is going to, hopefully, they kind of got a kick in their ass after last week, and they realize that they kind of need to turn things around. I think Norvell is going to look at the game tape and realize, hey, maybe we don't run it on 3rd and long every single play, so they can get a little bit more aggressive. And I think Florida State gets a bounce back win.
I agree. I love Florida State this week. I was going to talk more about it when we make our picks or announce our full parlays for the week, but I absolutely love Florida State. I think the public has hammered this line down because the public loves to do that. They love to jump on hype trains, and there was nothing easier to do during week 0 than just dump on Florida State. And the line, I believe, opened at 21, and it's down to 15.5 was the lowest I think it got to. I think it's gone back up to 16, depending on where you look. But I mean, that you're gonna Vegas thought it was 21, and you're gonna give me a touchdown because the public has bet it so hard. I got to take Florida State. I love it. I don't think BC is that good. I think their offense is atrocious. And I don't think it got much better than last year. I know Bill O'Brien's a good offensive mind and did a good job at a very bad, very awful situation at Penn State a decade ago, but that was a decade ago. Can he take right over? We'll see. Obviously, we're invested in this game because Michigan State goes to Boston College in a couple weeks, but I'm going to take Florida State. I like the under in this game as well. Because I still don't love that Florida State offense, but Florida State could win this one 24-3, and I could see that happening very realistically. I don't think Boston College scores a touchdown.
Yeah. For the Sunday game, I also have USC. I agree with you, Jay Walsh. I think LSU. I also agree with you, Matt. I'm not really an LSU fan this year. Their defense is very suspect, and I'm just not an Esmeyer fan. USC. Miller Moss is unproven, but they got a lot of weapons. Zachariah Branch, I think that's how you say it. He's a stud on the outside. I really like just how USC lines up against LSU in Vegas. So I think they can take care of business there as a 4-point underdog. And in the Monday game, yeah, I mean, I'm taking Florida State at home. I mean, Doak Campbell's going to be rocking. I think, Boston College is just that's just not a good team right now. They're a few years away. Bill O'Brien's got a lot of work to do. And, Florida State, they're gonna have a bounce back spot here, and I think that'll be a pretty easy pick right here. Give me Florida State.
I will take the Bayou Bengals on Sunday. Give me LSU. Like you was mentioned, I think Miller Moss kind of unproven. I still don't know if that USC defense has even slightly improved from last year when it just felt like once they hit November, it would, well, I mean, even before November, but it just hit a monumental collapse. I don't really trust Lincoln Riley as much when he doesn't have a Heisman winning quarterback. He seems like a Heisman quarterback merchant, which may have got him the job at USC. But it somewhat worked. I still like LSU in that one. And then on Monday night, I kind of agree with what has been said. Florida State, they looked bad in Dublin. I think Boston College is worse. I think Florida State covers here. I don't know if it will be an easy cover, but I still think they end up covering. So we've gotten to what will end up being one of the main parts of this show, and that is the committee picks. So, committee picks have gone back since when the gambling committee was created, 2 years ago or something like that. So this is a mainstay for us. We'll go in the order that I always do the tweets in. So that would be Matt, Jay Walsh, me, and then Jay. So Matt, let's start off with hearing what your parlay for the week is.
Okay, this week I like a lot of games. I went with a 7-game parlay after going 2-2 last week. Shout out Georgia Tech for being a part of both the wins, both Tech and the under. And then SMU looked like garbage, and Hawaii sold the bag. Nick, I kind of hold you accountable for that one, but it's okay. I'm going with North Dakota State. I have four games on this parlay that we already discussed. I have North Dakota State plus 10. I'm taking UNC minus 1.5 at Minnesota. I'm taking Florida getting 2.5 at home against Miami, Florida. I'm taking Texas A&M minus 2.5 at home against Notre Dame, and I'm taking Florida State. My two games that we didn't discuss, I'm taking Northwestern at home. They take on Miami, Ohio. They are favored by 3 in that game. I think that is too low. It almost worries me how low that line is. Northwestern had a very good year last year under David Braun, and kind of a surprisingly good year, all things considered, after everything that broke around Big Ten Media Days in July last year. And they lost a little bit. They don't have their quarterback. I believe it's Mike Wright is their quarterback taking over this year. But other than that, they have Cam Porter back at running back. I still think they're a very good defensive team, which is most important. And I think at home, they were 8-5 last year. I know Miami, Ohio is a good MAC team, but -3 at home, I think they get it done. And I think the Northwestern can still be a solid team in the Big Ten this year. And then I'm taking Arizona. They're laying 30 against New Mexico. It's a really big spread. And New Mexico did have the luxury of playing last week. They looked good for the most part against Montana State, and then it fell apart, and they lost that football game. And I think this week Arizona comes out guns a-blazing, first game under Brent Brennan, and they're going to let it fly with Noah Fafita and Tedero McMillan. And I think Arizona wins big in that one. So that's my 7-game parlay. So North Dakota State, UNC, Florida, Northwestern, Texas A&M, Arizona late on Saturday night, and Florida State on Monday.
All right. I went with my usual, the 5-game parlay. I do it every week. It's the classic. Obviously, we've already talked about a couple of the games. I'm taking Georgia -13.5 over Clemson. I'm taking Michigan State, Florida Atlantic over 45.5. Like I said, I've already kind of gotten into the reasons why for both of those, so I'm not really going to go too in depth there. But my next game that I'm taking, and you could probably call me a little bit biased for this, but I'm going to take Fresno State plus 20.5 over Michigan. I believe Fresno State returned several key offensive playmakers. They quarterback Mikey Keene, running back Malik Sherrod, wide receiver Jalen Moss. I mean, they returned multiple playmakers. Michigan obviously has the roster turnover after they lost a very big portion of their team to the NFL draft after their national championship season last year, asterisk. I think there's a decent chance that Michigan could theoretically be looking ahead to Texas next week in this game. So I think they could be kind of glancing over Fresno State, which I don't know is necessarily smart. And the biggest reason why I'm taking Fresno State in this game is because I do not trust Alex Orji. I do not think the guy is a good quarterback. Obviously, we've seen that he has the ability to run, but I don't know that he has completed more than 5 passes in his collegiate career in actual games. So I am very much not on board with him being a starting caliber Big Ten quarterback yet. So I'm taking Fresno State. Then my next game is I am taking Colorado State plus 31.5 over Texas. I think kind of for similar reasons, I think Texas could be looking ahead to when they have to travel to play Michigan next week. And I think they could obviously overlook Colorado State. Colorado State brings back their starting quarterback and star receiver Torrey Horton from last year. That's a big offensive duo. I think they'll be able to put up a couple decent amount of points, partially because Texas had a bit of a suspect pass defense last year. They finished 10th in the Big 12 in pass defense last year. And I think, like I said, that offensive duo of Colorado State, I think they'll put up points, and I think they cover 31.5. And then my final game that I picked was Texas State -32.5 over Lamar. And I mean, I've already gotten into, I think Texas State is going to be my big surprise pick this year. I have them winning the Sun Belt. They bring in, like I said, transfer quarterback Jordan McLeod. They bring back their star running back Ismail Mahdi. They bring back key receivers Joey Hobart and Cole Wilson. Last season they were first in the Sun Belt in scoring offense and total offense. And so I think they are just going to kind of blitz Lamar in this game. I think there's a decent chance that Texas State could drop about 50 in this game. And I don't think Lamar is able to keep up to the point where they keep it within 33. So I am taking Texas State 32.5 as my last game.
All right. I also did 5 picks this week. Mine always alternate, but I found 5 games this week. One of them is there's only one that's gotten mentioned on this show, and it just got mentioned. It was that Northwestern game. I have Northwestern covering what I had as a 2.5 point spread over Miami. But getting into the other games, the first one I had is Lehigh, the Mountain Hawks covering 33.5 at Army. I believe that game is on Thursday, might be Friday. It's one of the two. Mostly for the reason Army, we all know, loves to run the ball. With these clock rules, I don't see Army even scoring 33.5 this game. I would find that very shocking. So even if Lehigh don't score in this game, I still think they cover. Moving on to Saturday, I have UConn covering 20.5 against Maryland. I think Maryland's going to struggle this year, obviously replacing the worst Tagovailoa brother. I think they're going to struggle on offense. I don't think UConn's going to be great this year, but I think transfer quarterback from Wisconsin, Nick Evers, is going to make quite the difference. I still think that, they still have some very good players on that team. I have Hawaii covering the 14.5 against UCLA. They're a 14.5 point underdog on the island. I know they didn't look great against Delaware State last week. Kind of feels like it may have been in one of those situations where they're kind of looking ahead. They're a game on national television, CBS. I don't think Hawaii's hosted a nationally televised game like on a network like NBC, CBS, ABC since 2005. May even be farther back than that. I think this was a little bit of a look ahead situation last week. I don't think UCLA is going to be good at all this year. I think Hawaii at least covers. And then to close it out, it is the latest kickoff this weekend, and that is Washington taking on Weber State. I have Weber State. They're a 26.5 point underdog. I have them covering that because I just don't think this Washington team is going to be good this year. I honestly couldn't tell you one person on the Weber State team. I don't think Washington is going to be good. And I think Weber State find a way to cover in this matchup.
All right, so I also have 5 picks. I kind of copied Jay Walsh's flow here because there's one of these picks I have is kind of a look ahead spot. So first of all, I got USC plus the 4.5. My next one, I got UTEP plus 27.5 going to Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. And that is because Nebraska is going to be hosting Colorado next week. I think this is a look ahead. The next week, I think this is a look ahead spot for Nebraska. And also, they're starting 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola. I think starting a 5-star true freshman quarterback. I think his first game could struggle a little bit. So I just think 27.5 is a lot of points, especially with a Nebraska team that's very unproven and a team that went 5-7 last year. I also have Georgia minus the 13.5 against Clemson in Atlanta, and I got UNC minus the 1.5 against Minnesota, and I also got Boise State. I think there can be I think they can be a team that can make the 12-team playoff. They can be that group of 5 team along with Liberty. I have them minus the 12.5 against Georgia Southern. So those are my 5 picks.
Well, that is going to wrap it up for this inaugural episode of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. It's been great, re-talking with you guys. It has been quite a while since I think all 4 of us have had a discussion, together somewhat face-to-face. We may be going back to when Jay Walsh was still in college, which was a decade ago, basically. We will be back.
Rising.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be back each week doing the same thing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for joining in today. Matt, the Twitter is Merrifield S Book, correct? I think.
That sounds correct. Merrifield S Book.
But Jay,
Merrifield
where
S
can
Book.
the people find you on Twitter?
Yeah, you can find me at J DeCoster, just my full name. Maybe I'll put some tweets out this season. You never know. I've taken a little bit of a break, but I'm still out there. Still looking through Twitter, the old Twitter world. So,
Jay Walsh, where can people find you on Twitter?
That's going to be at JD Walsh 24. That's JDWALSH 24 on Twitter. And yes, it is Twitter, not X. But Follow along with my tweets if you want to see a lot of stuff about Detroit Tigers baseball and Michigan State sports. So shameless plug.
Matt, we know you somewhat run the Merrifield Sportsbook Twitter, but what is the other Twitter people can find you at?
You can also find me at M and then Merrifield. So M, 2 M's, Merrifield 2027. Merrifield is spelled the same way as the sportsbook. And if you enjoy Michigan State athletic coverage, mostly hockey and basketball this year, if you enjoy shit posting, if you enjoy, I wouldn't call it trolling because I think it's more tasteful than just straight up trolling everybody, but it's my tweets like to have a good time. So if you like a little laugh and some niche tweets, I'm the place for you.
And then, of course, you can find me at NickBurt13. So thank you so much for everybody joining in. This kind of came together a little quicker than expected, but we got through it. So thank you all so much for watching, and we will be back next week for the week 2 edition of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. Make sure you hit, the like and subscribe button to make sure you are always tuned in for that.